Welcome to the Utility Security Podcast, your command center for all things utility security. From power plant warriors to grid guardians and even curious citizens, this podcast is your essential briefing on keeping up to date with knowledge and insights for securing our nation's utilities. Expert intel through interviews with security chiefs, tech wizards, and policy shapers. Tune in as we explore the latest vulnerabilities, industry best practices, and inspiring stories of resilience from the frontline heroes keeping our grids secure.
Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Charles Leas, the Operations Chief for the Office for Bombing Prevention. We're going to be talking about the partnering with law enforcement and why that's so valuable today. I want to start off, Charles, with a reference to our first issue of Utility Security Magazine. We talked with Avangrid's CSO and VP Brian Harrell. He talked pretty extensively about the importance of building relationships, connections, and communications with local law enforcement and why that's so fundamental to building a strong security posture. Can you talk about how it has been important for OBP and CISA to partner with law enforcement?
Well, I'd like to first, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you and your listeners about the mission of the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, commonly known as CISA, and the office I work for, the Office for Bombing Prevention. So before I get into that, I would just like to take a moment, and obviously this is a very special but sad week for law enforcement. This is Law Enforcement Police Week, as they call it. And so it's really, I'm really happy to be able to spread the message about how important the partnerships are with law enforcement. When we work with companies and federal agencies and state and local, tribal, territorial, we're trying to always work towards improving the resilience of critical infrastructure. As your listeners know, most of the critical infrastructure in the United States is owned and operated by private companies. So it's really important for that public-private partnership. And as far as the Office for Bombing Prevention, improvised explosive devices or bombs remain a persistent threat globally. You see a lot more of it overseas, but incidents are happening in the United States every day. They may be small, like for instance, it may be a bomb threat, but that could still pose psychological damage to people if they're getting repeated bomb threats at a location. But then there's also a couple of years ago, the Nashville bombing, which was one of the largest bombings in the United States. Mm-hmm. So these tactics are still used throughout the world and in the United States, and they're easily accessible materials that could have catastrophic effects against critical infrastructure such as utilities and things of that nature. So for OBP, or Office for Bombing Prevention, we're just trying to improve the communication and partnerships with our stakeholders in the private sector and government to help alert law enforcement when these incidents could happen, because we love to stop them before they happen. But sometimes we have to mitigate it after the fact.
Okay. So you're kind of bringing up the bomb making materials awareness program that you all are working on. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about that initiative?
Well, this is definitely a program right after my heart. I was the lead for that for a couple years. So this program, there's a lot of products throughout the country that are made that are really great for, the law-abiding person to use. It makes their lives better. But you could probably look underneath your sink and you probably have materials in there that you could put together and do something bad with if you were a nefarious person. So we work with, our federal partners such as the FBI. We also work with the ATF and state, local law enforcement, along with the companies, because the companies are the ones that, produce the products and then also sell them, about the dangers of certain explosive precursor chemicals and exploding target material and associated components that could be used, whether it's a criminal act or a terrorist type event. So getting that information out there and making sure that the public, who are her eyes and ears, they see something suspicious to report it. Many times, as you know, we'll see a mass tragedy incident happening across the country, and you'll see the news reporters going out there talking to neighbors and other people going, that person wasn't really acting right. Well, if you feel that something is incorrect, then you need to report it. They're not going to get in trouble unless they're doing something illegal, and you may just saved a bombing incident in your community and saved your neighbor. So it's very important.
Okay. So our listeners work for the nation's most critical infrastructure component, in my opinion, which is utilities. Can you discuss the importance of this program and how they can be empowered by partnering with CISA, OBP, local law enforcement to prevent bomb threats or attacks by bad actors?
Well, first, having a great internal security program of your workforce is very important. And, that's important because you never know if someone's having a bad day or, so internal protocols for that. But also just knowing your environment. I mean, you never really know where the next attack's going to happen. It could be a utility. It could be something else. But if you're a very conscientious person and you're going to a big box store and buying, say you're going there to go buy, you're going to paint your house, and you see someone there buying stuff to paint their house, but they're also maybe buying drain cleaner. How many times when you go to purchase products, you usually do it like for a certain do-it-yourself type project. A lot of people just don't mix and match. So, drain cleaner and painting products don't necessarily go together, but they could be used in a certain scenario to make something nefarious. So just being a very alert person will actually help the company as well as the community. So I don't like to narrow it down to just one focused area because it's just very important to really spread the message completely. And then we do work with a lot of companies that sell, distribute, and use those products that could be used against a utility or some other company.
I'd love for our listeners to be a little more tuned in to and understanding more about the bomb threat itself. And can you talk more about the motivation some might have to bomb utilities, as well as some of the trends or data that might be concerning as it relates to possible bomb threats on critical infrastructure?
Yeah, so bomb threats are definitely one of the larger threats in the bombing community because, we have a lot of training out there for everyone, but it's one of those areas where involve any kind of communication, a presence or an intent to detonate a device. Many times they may not actually be credible, but as a decision maker, you have to, use your training and experience to decide if it's credible or not and what you should do. So working with law enforcement is important, but actually handling the initial bomb threat, it's the site decision maker of that private company. So Office for Bombing Prevention actually provides a lot of training in that area. And if your listeners want to go to CISA.gov and just type in bomb threat, there's a whole bunch of information in there that we can provide, and also videos and possible training they may be able to sign up for. And one of the worst things about a bomb threat, as we all know, is that it's there to disrupt, distract, and harass a location or organization. So this could have an impact financially, psychologically, to an area or a community. So it's really important to continue to work with public safety, in the local area where you are, to have a plan. And like I said, OBP does have plans, Office for Bombing Prevention, but it's also important with your state and locals to work with them as well to know how to deal with the incident. It's all about handling the incident and just training your people that work there correctly, so they take it for what it is, and hopefully we can get through it, because it doesn't seem like it's a trend that's going to stop.
You mentioned some resources already, going and looking for bomb threat on the CISA site. OBP and CISA not only provide empowering security training and resources to local law enforcement, but to utilities as well. Can you tell our listeners more about the resources that utilities can access and where they can find those resources above and beyond what you referenced there with the bomb threat stuff?
Well, this is the really great part of the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, Office for Bombing Prevention. We've been developing courses and different products for years to try to improve the ability to help prevent these types of incidents, or at least mitigate them. So if you go on to, like I said before, CISA.gov, you could even type in bombing prevention. It'll take you to a myriad of different resources that are available, from online courses to in-person courses to what we have like a VILT. It's like a virtual led instructor training, which is really good. You have an instructor on the other side. And all those classes are housed. We have a partnership with FEMA, the Center for Domestic Preparedness, and you just have to register, and we can provide that information at a later time so you all have that. But there's also directions on the CISA webpage. You register and you can actually take those courses. The videos we have, between the bomb making materials videos and the vignettes of how to search for a suspicious, item, are really good, and they're right on the .gov. The other thing that we have, it's a platform, is our Tripwire platform, where it's an information sharing platform, and security professionals and others like that can sign up on there and get access to certain materials. We also go out and do assessments, counter improvised explosive assessments, to see how communities are prepared for an incident. We work with a lot of public safety, and there are areas where critical infrastructure is included in that. So depending on which city we go to, they may be reaching out to utilities to be part of it, to see the cascading effects if an incident happened. We go out. It's a very it's a resource that's in high demand, our explosive blast modeling, where we do assessments of critical infrastructure and help do 3D modeling and anti-terrorism measures to show, like, maybe standoff and what areas are maybe vulnerable. And then finally, we have our security resiliency guide and annexes that are intended to assist stakeholders, emergency management planners, and things of how to deal with counter ID activities. And I just want to, when I said that was final, but I want to add one other thing, because I'm very proud of our training branch that we have here, and they have an empowered training program. We've actually trained, depending on the size of the company, empowered trainers on certain protective measures, and then they can go and train their companies. So that's also, it's also public safety uses it as well, but we've also opened it up to some private companies. So that's just a couple of things, but we're always looking to improve our resources, because at the end of the day, we want to benefit the taxpayer as best we can.
Well, it's an abundant and impressive list of resources and training opportunities for utilities to take advantage of. And I do highly encourage our listeners, if you haven't gone out and looked at what CISA offers out to you to help you increase your security, improve your security, please do. There's just so much there. I'm going to wrap up, like every interview I do. I kind of ask this crystal ball question, where I ask the interviewee to look into the future. And I think it's important, because as security professionals have to be in front of things, right? And they got to be thinking about the future. So where do you see the future of bomb threats, bomb prevention in 5 years, 10 years, beyond? What's in the future that we should be aware of, or what trends do you see happening?
Well, without getting into too detail with some of these things, all you have to do is look around the world, turn on the news, and you can see the types of threats certain countries are facing, from unmanned type things, and it could be an issue. Artificial intelligence, I mean, that's really, really taking off, and you could pretty much type almost anything in there, and it'll come up with something. So that's something we need to get a hold of. But so bombings, and bomb threats, they have been a persistent thing since the beginning of the United States, and it's going to continue to be persistent. The only way we can get our wrap around it is if we keep the community involved, and a whole of nation, whole government approach. I mean, I know a lot of times people say that, but we really need to do that. Everybody has a part to play. That's from the everyday person going to buy things at the store, to the workforce, the security professionals, the law enforcement, private companies. I would encourage, and probably many of your companies that are part of this podcast probably already do this, but I would encourage them to link up with any local fusion center that's in their area. We can always provide links for those in different states, because information sharing is key.
Hmm.
We have to share the information. We can't be domained. The more information we get out there, something could be happening in, New England, and then all of a sudden it starts trending down to Mid-Atlantic or something. So we definitely need to, information sharing is the most important. If we do that, I think we can kind of stay ahead of other issues that may happen.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Charles. It's a lot of great insights, and the saying goes, you always hear saying it takes a village to raise a child, but I think it takes a village to keep critical infrastructure safe too. And I'm glad that CISA and Office for Bombing Prevention is working toward building together ways we can all work together. So with that said, we'll wrap up the podcast. Thank you everybody for listening, and stay safe and secure out there.
Don't forget to visit our website at utilitysecurity.com for exclusive intel, resources, and a community of fellow utility security professionals. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay tuned for your next mission briefing.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes